Hi there. Welcome to Dreamy Histories channel. Tonight, we're standing in the shadow of the mighty Colosseum, where the morning air already reeks of anticipation, sweat, and last night's wine. You can hear the distant roar of caged beasts beneath the arena floor, and if you listen carefully, you might catch the metallic scrape of gladiators sharpening their weapons. Here's a fun fact. Statistically speaking, you have a better chance of being trampled by the crowd today than actually getting a good seat. So you probably won't survive this with all your toes intact. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing how this community spans the globe. All right, let's begin the story. You're jolted awake by your neighbor pounding on the wall. It's still dark outside, maybe 3 hours before sunrise, but you know exactly why he's making all this racket. Today's the big day. Emperor Trajan himself is hosting games to celebrate his victory in Dacia. And these aren't just any games. Word on the street is they'll last 123 days. 123 days of blood, spectacle, and free entertainment. Your neighbor's already getting ready, and if you don't move fast, you'll be stuck in the worst seats, squinting at ant-sized gladiators from the very top tier. You stumble out of bed, your feet hitting the cold stone floor of your tiny apartment. Outside, Rome is already stirring. Through your window, you can hear the rumble of wheels on cobblestones as vendors rush to set up their stalls near the amphitheater. The smell of baking bread mingles with the less pleasant odors of a city with 1 million inhabitants and no real sewage system. Historians still argue whether the average Roman actually bathed as often as we think they did, but judging by the funk that'll surround you in a few hours, you're betting on not really. You throw on your toga, well, if you're wealthy enough to own one. More likely, you're wrestling into a simple tunic that's seen better days. You grab a chunk of yesterday's bread and a handful of olives. No time for a proper breakfast. Outside your door, the narrow street is already filling with people, all heading in the same direction. The crowd moves like a river, carrying you along whether you want to go or not. Someone steps on your foot. Someone else elbows you in the ribs. This is just the beginning. The Colosseum looms ahead, a massive oval of travertine and concrete that makes your apartment building look like a chicken coop. Even in the pre-dawn darkness, it's impressive. 4 stories high, with 80 arched entrances at ground level. The mainstream historical fact everyone knows is that it could hold 50,000 spectators. But here's something quirky. The building actually had a retractable awning system called the velarium, operated by sailors from the Roman Navy. Yeah, sailors, in the middle of Rome, because who else would know how to work massive sails? As you get closer, the crowd thickens. Everyone's trying to find their correct entrance. The Colosseum has a surprisingly organized entry system, with numbered pottery shards serving as tickets that direct you to specific gates. Of course, that doesn't stop people from trying to sneak into better sections. You clutch your pottery shard tight. It's for the Medianum Secundum, not the worst seats, but definitely not the best. You're middle class, maybe a shopkeeper or a skilled craftsman, so you'll be sitting above the senators but below the plebs. The push to get inside is intense. Bodies press against you from all sides. Someone's elbow finds your kidney. A child somewhere is crying. The smell of garlic breath and unwashed bodies is overwhelming. You shuffle forward, inch by inch, through the entrance. The architecture inside is mind-blowing. Soaring arches, corridors that seem to go on forever, staircases leading up and up and up. It's like an ancient sports stadium, which, let's be honest, is exactly what it is. You finally reach your section and start climbing. The stairs are steep and narrow, and the person behind you keeps stepping on your heels. By the time you reach your tier, you're sweating and out of breath. But hey, at least you made it. You squeeze past other early arrivals, looking for a decent spot. The stone seats are hard and uncomfortable. You really should have brought a cushion like that smart guy 3 rows down. As you settle in, the sun is just starting to peek over the horizon, painting the sky a dusty pink. The arena below is still in shadow, but you can make out the fresh sand that's been spread to soak up whatever fluids will be spilled today. Around you, thousands of other Romans are finding their seats, chatting, placing bets, and unpacking snacks. Someone nearby is already drunk. It's going to be a long, exciting, and slightly terrifying day. The sun climbs higher, and now you can really see where you've ended up in this massive stone beehive. The Colosseum's seating is like a physical map of Roman society. And buddy, you better know your place. Down at the bottom, so close they can probably smell the gladiators' fear sweat, sit the senators in their pristine white togas with the thick purple stripes. They've got cushioned seats and shade, the bastards. You watch them arrive fashionably late, slaves carrying their pillows and snacks, acting like they own the place, which, technically, some of them probably do. Your section, the Maenianum Secundum, is for regular Roman citizens, not the super rich, not the dirt poor, just you. The merchant who sells fish sauce down by the Sabura, the baker who gets up at midnight to make bread, the teacher who beats Latin grammar into reluctant students. You're crammed together on stone benches, each person getting about 16 inches of space. The guy next to you is already manspreading like public transportation has been invented 2,000 years early. His knee keeps bumping yours, and you're pretty sure that's wine you smell on his breath, not water. Above you, way up in the heavens, is the Maenianum Summum, the nosebleed section where the poor folk sit. Even higher, in the very top tier, there's a wooden gallery for slaves and women. Yeah, women. Historians still argue whether Augustus was being protective or just a massive prude when he banished women to the worst seats, supposedly to protect their delicate sensibilities from the violence below, which is hilarious, considering Roman women regularly watched public executions in the Forum and probably saw more street violence before breakfast than most modern people see in a lifetime. But here's the real kicker. The very best seats aren't even at ground level. The Emperor's box, the Pulvinar, sits at the narrow end of the oval, elevated just enough so everyone can see him, but not so high that he seems disconnected from the action. It's got marble seats, silk cushions, and probably a nice breeze that doesn't smell like the combined armpit odor of 50,000 people. You crane your neck, trying to catch a glimpse. Is that him? No, just some flunky testing the seating. The social dynamics are already starting to simmer. Below you, you spot some nouveau riche merchant trying to squeeze into the equestrian section. The knights are having none of it. There's a brief scuffle before the guy gets ejected by the arena staff. Big, burly men who look like they could be gladiators themselves. The merchant slinks back up to your section, red-faced and muttering. Money can buy a lot in Rome, but it can't buy you a better bloodline. You notice something interesting. Everyone's dressed up, even though they're about to spend all day watching people die. The women who are allowed in the lower sections, mostly wealthy wives and daughters, are wearing their best stolas, hair piled high in elaborate styles that must have taken their slaves hours to create. The men sport their finest togas or tunics, depending on their rank. It's like going to the theatre, except the actors might actually die. To your left, a group of young men are already placing bets. They've got a complicated system worked out, with one guy keeping track on a wax tablet. 20 sestertii on the retiarius, one shouts. You're insane, his friend replies. The Murmillo's got reach and experience. They're discussing gladiators like modern sports fans analyze players' stats. There's even a quirky historical tidbit that gladiators had trading cards. Well, sort of. Clay tablets with their names and fighting records were popular collectibles. The seating fills up fast now. Late arrivals are getting desperate, trying to bribe their way into better sections. You watch one particularly bold teenager attempt to sneak past the guards into the senatorial section. He makes it about 3 steps before a burly attendant grabs him by the scruff of the neck and literally throws him out. The crowd cheers. This is entertainment before the entertainment. Your bench is now completely full. You're pressed thigh to thigh with strangers, and it's not even mid-morning yet. The stone is already warming up under the sun, and you realize with a sinking feeling that by afternoon, it's going to be like sitting on a cooking surface. Should have brought a cushion. Should have brought water. Should have used the public latrine before coming in. But it's too late now. If you leave your spot, someone will steal it in a heartbeat. The noise level is rising. Conversations in a dozen different accents fill the air. Latin mixed with Greek, Germanic languages, Syrian, Egyptian. Rome is the center of the world, and the world has come to watch. A fight breaks out 2 sections over, something about someone's wife, from what you can gather. The crowd around them is cheering them on, making bets on this impromptu pre-show. The arena security breaks it up, but not before one guy gets a bloody nose, first blood of the day, and the games haven't even started. A horn blasts across the arena, and suddenly vendors appear everywhere like mushrooms after rain. Chickpeas, get your roasted chickpeas, one shouts directly in your ear. Another waves skewers of mysterious meat that's probably best not questioned too closely. The emperor might be footing the bill for the spectacle, but he's not feeding you. Well, not directly. That's where the free bread comes in. And boy, is it a piece of political genius that would make modern spin doctors weep with envy. You hear the rumble before you see them, slaves pushing massive wheeled baskets through the crowd, tossing small loaves of bread into the grasping hands of citizens. The panis quadratus, marked with lines to make it easy to break into portions. It's not great bread, a bit stale, probably made with 3rd-grade flour, but it's free, and that's what matters. You manage to snag one as it flies over someone's head. The guy behind you isn't so lucky and starts cursing in what sounds like Gaulish. This bread isn't just food. It's a contract written in wheat and water. The emperor feeds you, entertains you, and in return, you don't riot. Simple as that. The mainstream historical fact everyone learns is bread and circuses. But here's what they don't tell you. The bread distribution at the games was actually separate from the regular grain dole. This is bonus bread, bribery bread, shut up and watch people die bread. The vendors, meanwhile, are working the crowd like professionals. There's the wine seller with his watered-down vintage that'll still get you drunk if you drink enough. The fruit vendor with figs and dates that cost 3 times what they would outside. Some entrepreneurial soul is even selling snow, actual snow, brought down from the mountains and kept cold in straw. Mix it with wine and honey, and you've got the ancient equivalent of a slushie. It costs more than you make in a day, but the patrician woman 2 rows down buys 3. You watch a particularly clever vendor work his magic. He's selling cushions. Genius, really, given these stone seats. But he's also got a side hustle going. For a few extra coins, he'll save your spot while you hit the latrines. For a few more, he'll spread nasty rumors about your competitor in the betting pools. The guy's running a full-service operation from a basket of moldy cushions. The political messaging isn't subtle. Everything here screams, "Your emperor loves you. Look how he provides." There are even guys walking around with signs listing all of Trajan's military victories. Dacia falls. 10,000 enemies killed. Gold flows into Rome. It's propaganda so obvious it comes back around to being effective. The message is clear. All this bounty, all this entertainment, flows from the emperor's generosity. Never mind that it's actually funded by those very military campaigns that probably killed your second cousin who joined the legions. A fight breaks out over bread distribution. Some greedy bastard tried to grab 5 loaves, and now he's getting pummeled by 3 angry citizens while still clutching his ill-gotten carbs. The crowd cheers. This is what historians still argue about. Was the mob really this easily controlled? Or were they playing along with the social contract while fully aware of the manipulation? Probably both. Honestly, you're not stupid. You know this is a bribe, but it's an entertaining bribe with free snacks. So who's complaining? The smell of food is overwhelming now. Garum, that fermented fish sauce Romans put on everything, mingles with roasting meat, fresh bread, and spilled wine. Your stomach growls. You tear into your free bread, which tastes like cardboard and political expedients. Someone's selling boiled eggs with salt and cumin. The price is outrageous, but you buy 2 anyway. This is a special occasion. Here's a quirky fact. They found melon seeds in the Colosseum's drains. Thousands of them. Romans were apparently obsessed with spitting seeds, just like modern baseball fans. You watch a kid nearby demonstrate this ancient tradition, much to his mother's horror. The seeds rain down on the tier below. Someone shouts up an anatomically impossible suggestion. The emperor still hasn't arrived, but his generosity is already working its magic. The crowd is happy, fed, slightly drunk. Perfect conditions for watching wholesale slaughter. A crier walks through, announcing that today's games will feature 5,000 pairs of gladiators and 11,000 animals. The numbers are absurd. How do you even count 11,000 dead animals? Is someone keeping a tally? Sorry, we only killed 10,999. Fetch another bear. You notice something interesting about the bread distribution. The better your seats, the better your bread. Those senators down below, they're getting white bread with herbs baked in. You're getting standard brown bread. The plebs above are lucky if their loaves don't have pebbles in them. Even free food has a hierarchy in Rome. As you finish your eggs, wiping your fingers on your tunic like the classy person you are. A massive cheer goes up. The emperor's entourage has been spotted approaching. Time for the real show to begin. Your bread has been eaten. Your political loyalty has been purchased, and your bloodlust is ready to be sated. Just another day in the glorious Roman Empire. The souvenir sellers descend like locusts wearing togas. Gladiator figurines. Get your gladiator figurines. A guy shoves a clay sculpture in your face. It's supposed to be Flamma, the Syrian gladiator who's won 21 fights. The resemblance is questionable at best. It looks more like an angry potato holding a tiny sword. But people are buying them anyway, clutching their little clay heroes like sacred relics. You're tempted by a bronze medallion featuring Carpophorus, the beast fighter who supposedly killed 20 bears in a single afternoon. The vendor swears it's blessed by the gladiator himself. Right. and you're secretly the emperor's long-lost brother. But something about the way the sun glints off the cheap bronze makes you dig into your purse. 3 sestertii later, you're the proud owner of a probably fake good luck charm. The merchandise game here is insane. There are ceramic oil lamps decorated with fighting scenes, dice made from bone. The vendor hints they're carved from actual gladiator bones, which is both unlikely and disturbing. Wooden swords for the kids, and this is where it gets weird, gladiator sweat. Actual vials of what's supposedly gladiator sweat, collected from the training grounds. Women buy it as an aphrodisiac. Historians still argue whether this was a real practice or ancient urban legend, but the brisk sales suggest people believe it works. Down the row, someone's selling programs scratched onto wooden tablets. For 5 asses, the smallest Roman coin, you can get names, fighting styles, and win-loss records. It's like buying a sports program, except these athletes might be dead by sundown. You splurge on one because you want to sound knowledgeable when placing bets. Oh yes, Marcus Attilius, the Murmillo, won his last 3 by submission. Strong defensive fighter, tends to favor his left side. You practice saying this with confidence. The betting action is heating up faster than the stone seats under your backside. Bookmakers work the crowd. Odds scratched on wax tablets that change by the minute. The mainstream historical fact is that Romans loved gambling. But here's a quirky detail. They'd bet on literally anything. Not just who'd win, but how long the fight would last. Which body part would get wounded first? Whether someone would cry for mercy. There's even a guy taking bets on how many times the emperor will yawn during the morning program. Your neighbor, the manspreader with wine breath, is going all in. 50 sestertii on the thrax in the 3rd bout. He's waving actual coins around like an idiot, which immediately attracts every pickpocket in a 3-row radius. You edge slightly away. You've got 10 sestertii riding on a retiarius named Neptune, because of course he's named Neptune, and that's already more than you should be spending. The merchandise gets progressively weirder as you look around. Someone's selling authentic arena sand in little clay pots. Blessed by the blood of champions, the seller cries. Right, because you definitely need a pot of bloody sand in your house. There are pieces of fabric supposedly torn from gladiator tunics. Little lead curse tablets where you can write hexes against fighters you don't like. And you're not making this up. Gladiator-themed sex toys. The Romans had no chill whatsoever. A kid near you is playing with wooden gladiator dolls, making them fight while his mother haggles over the price of a commemorative cup. The cup has a badly painted scene of last year's Naumachia, the mock naval battle, where they flooded the arena. You remember hearing about it. Half the participants drowned because, surprise, surprise, criminals can't swim in full armor. Fun for the whole family. The professional gamblers are easy to spot. They're the ones with the serious faces and the complicated betting systems, calculating odds based on fighter height, weight, experience, and what they had for breakfast. One guy's got a whole scroll full of statistics. He's treating this like a science, which is hilarious considering half these matches are probably fixed. You overheard 2 trainers earlier discussing how to make a fight look good, while ensuring their man takes a dive in the 5th round. Your medallion is already getting sticky from your sweaty hands. The heat's building, and it's not even noon. Someone started a chant about their favorite gladiator, Festus, Festus, Festus. And it's spreading through your section like a plague. You don't even know who Festus is, but you find yourself chanting along because mob mentality is a hell of a drug. The souvenir quality varies wildly. The rich folks are buying silver statuettes and ivory dice. You saw one senator purchase an entire gladiator helmet, allegedly worn in actual combat. Meanwhile, up in the cheap seats, people are making do with chalk drawings on broken pottery, but everyone's buying something. It's like you need proof you were here, witnessing history. Even if that history is just watching people stab each other for entertainment, a final vendor pushes through, selling fans. Smart business in this heat. They're decorated with gladiator portraits and dirty poems. You buy one because you're already sweating through your tunic, and the main event hasn't even started. As you fan yourself with a picture of some oiled-up retiarius, you realize you've spent a week's wages on crap you don't need, but everyone else is doing it too, so at least you're broke in good company. The crowd suddenly erupts as trumpets pierce the morning air. Not just any trumpets, but the deep, balls-rattling sound of cornua. Those curved horns that look like someone weaponized a bronze pretzel. The gates at the far end of the arena swing open, and the pompa begins. The opening procession that's part religious ceremony, part Vegas floor show, and all Roman excess. First come the lictors, carrying the fasces, those bundles of rods with axes that basically scream, "We will beat you to death with bureaucracy." Behind them, musicians pour into the arena. Flute players, more trumpeters, drummers beating out rhythms that make your chest vibrate. A group of hydraulics players wheel in a water organ, because apparently regular instruments aren't extra enough. The thing sounds like a dying elephant trying to sing opera, but the crowd loves it. Here come the dancers, and these aren't your subtle artistic types. These are full-on theatrical performers in see-through silks, gyrating like their lives depend on it, which they might. Acrobats flip and tumble across the sand, forming human pyramids that wobble dangerously. One guy's juggling flaming torches while riding a unicycle. In 80 AD, where did they even get a unicycle? Historians still argue whether Romans invented more things than we give them credit for, or if they just had way too much time and slave labor. The religious portion kicks in as priests parade past, carrying statues of the gods. Mars gets the biggest cheer, god of war at a murder festival. How appropriate. They're burning so much incense, it's like walking through a perfumed fog bank. You're pretty sure that's to cover up the smell of blood, piss, and fear that's about to saturate this place. But right now, it just makes you sneeze. Then things get weird. Exotic animals start appearing, led by handlers who look like they'd rather be literally anywhere else. A parade of elephants thunders past, decorated with gold paint and silk banners. Behind them, camels spit at the front row. The senators look horrified, which is hilarious. There's a giraffe, an actual giraffe, and half the crowd has never seen one before. Some kid behind you shouts, "Why is that horse so tall?" Bless his stupid little heart. The mainstream historical fact everyone knows is that Romans loved spectacle. But here's the quirky bit. They had a whole crew of people whose job was sand maintenance. These guys, the Arenarii, are out there now, raking the sand into perfect patterns while trying to look ceremonial about it. It's like watching someone try to make Zen gardens while carnival music plays. They're creating these elaborate designs that'll be completely destroyed the moment someone bleeds on them. Now for the real pre-show. Beast performers. Not fighters, just performers. A trained bear dances on its hind legs while a monkey rides its back. The monkey's wearing a tiny toga, because of course it is. Lions jump through flaming hoops. Actual flaming hoops. 2,000 years before circus cliches were invented. One trainer has taught a leopard to play dead on command. which seems like tempting fate in an arena literally designed for death. The emperor finally makes his entrance. And sweet Jupiter, does he know how to work a crowd? Trajan appears in the imperial box wearing purple and gold, probably worth more than your entire neighborhood. The crowd goes absolutely mental. Trajan, Trajan, Trajan. The chant shakes the building. He raises one hand, and 50,000 people lose their minds like he's just cured death itself. Behind the emperor, his entourage files in. The empress, dripping in jewels that catch the sun and blind everyone in the cheap seats. Courtiers, advisors, and about 6 different food tasters. Can't be too careful. The Vestal virgins get their own special box nearby, because nothing says holy religious duty like watching people disembowel each other. The parade continues with a showcase of today's execution devices. They wheel in crosses, bizarre mechanical contraptions, and is that a bronze bull? You've heard about these. They stuff criminals inside and light fires underneath, and the screams come out sounding like bull noises. Some Greek invented it, because of course it was the Greeks. They were messed up long before Rome perfected the art. More performers flood in. Dwarfs doing comedy routines that are probably offensive even by Roman standards. Men on stilts dressed as gods, which feels borderline blasphemous, but who's counting? A group of women perform a dance that's supposedly telling the story of Diana the Huntress, but looks more like a strip show with extra steps. The 14-year-old boys in your section are having a religious experience. As the procession winds down, priests sacrifice a bull right there on the sand. The blood sprays in an arc, and the crowd cheers like it's the best thing they've ever seen. The priests examine the entrails for omens. Apparently, the liver looks great, which means the gods approve of today's wholesale slaughter. Convenient how that always works out. The performers, musicians, and priests file out through the gates. The arenarii rush out for one last sand touch-up, smoothing over the blood from the sacrifice. The organ plays a final, wheezing note. The dancers give one last hip thrust. The elephant takes a massive dump right in front of the imperial box, which someone will definitely interpret as an omen later. Silence falls over the arena. 50,000 people hold their breath. The real show is about to begin. The gates creak open again, but this time there's no fanfare. What emerges is Noah's Ark having a really bad day. Cages roll out on wooden wheels, and the sounds coming from inside make your primitive brain scream, "Run!" The Venatores, beast hunters, stride into the arena like they own the place, wearing leather armor that looks cool, but probably offers as much protection as wet parchment against claws. First up, they release a bunch of ostriches. Yes, ostriches. These aren't the majestic animals you might imagine. These are pissed off, 7-foot-tall birds with a serious attitude problem. The hunters chase them around while the crowd laughs. One ostrich decides it's had enough and charges directly at a venator, who drops his spear and runs like a child. The bird's gaining on him. This isn't in the script. The crowd is losing it. Tears streaming down faces as this trained killer gets punked by an angry chicken on steroids. But now things escalate. They release lions, proper North African lions with manes like halos of death. The laughter dies instantly. These aren't the mangy, underfed creatures you might expect. These are well-fed killing machines, because a boring hunt means a bored crowd, and a bored crowd means an emperor answering uncomfortable questions. The mainstream historical fact is that Romans drove several species near extinction for their games. But here's something quirky. They had a whole supply chain for this. Ships specifically designed for transporting hippos. desert outpost that existed solely to catch leopards, an entire economy built on making animals die entertainingly. The Venatores work in teams, using tactics that would make modern bullfighters look like amateurs. One guy baits the lion with a red cloth. Apparently bulls aren't the only ones who hate that color, while another sneaks up with a spear. The lion's not stupid though. It feints left, spins right, and suddenly the spear carrier is on his back with 400 pounds of angry cat bearing down. He rolls aside at the last second. The spear finds its mark. The crowd explodes. First blood to the humans. They release bears next. Massive brown bears from Germania that make the lions look like house pets. One bear immediately decides the whole situation is stupid and sits down in the middle of the arena, refusing to move. They poke it with long poles. It yawns. This bear has achieved a level of I don't give a damn that you honestly respect. Finally, they bring out honey, actual honey, and suddenly Mr. Apathy becomes a whirling dervish of claws and rage. The creativity is insane. They've built a fake forest scene on one side of the arena, complete with trees. How did they get trees in here? And painted backdrops. Hunters stalk deer and wild boar through this artificial wilderness, while you munch on nuts and place bets on which animal makes it to the tree line. Spoiler, none of them do. The sand is turning a color that can only be described as uh-oh burgundy. Here's where it gets properly bonkers. They bring out a rhinoceros. A rhinoceros. This thing looks like someone crossed a tank with a unicorn and gave it anger management issues. The beast hunters take one look and immediately revise their life choices. The rhino charges, and I swear to Mars, you can feel the ground shake from up here. One venator tries to dodge, trips, and goes flying in a cloud of sand. He's fine, but his dignity will never recover. Historians still argue whether the elaborate staged hunts were about demonstrating Roman dominion over nature or just pure sadism. ¿Por qué no los dos? You watch them release crocodiles into a hastily constructed pool. Crocodiles, in Rome, swimming around while some lunatic in a loincloth tries to wrestle them. This is someone's actual job. What do you do for a living? Oh, I wrestle Egyptian river monsters for the amusement of drunk people. The sheer variety is staggering. Leopards from Asia, wolves from Gaul. Something spotted that might be a cheetah, but could just be a leopard having an identity crisis. They even wheel out cages of harmless animals, deer, rabbits, gazelles, just so the hunters can rack up impressive kill counts. One guy takes down 3 gazelles with 3 arrows in about 10 seconds. Show off. The emperor himself gets involved, because of course he does. Trajan stands up in his box with a bow, and they release a bear directly below him. It's the safest hunt in history. The bear is basically herded into position by a dozen guards with spears. The emperor's arrow flies true, shocking, and the crowd goes wild like he's just personally conquered Parthia with a dinner fork. The sycophancy is thick enough to spread on bread. Between the major hunts, they do crowd-pleasing intermissions. A trained elephant rides Trajan in the sand with a stick held in its trunk. A team of dogs performs military drills. There's even a seal, a fucking seal, balancing a ball on its nose. Where did they get a seal? How did they train it? These are questions that will haunt you later, but right now you're too busy laughing at its whiskers. As the morning wears on, the arena floor looks like a butcher shop explosion. They've killed hundreds of animals already, and this is just the appetizer. Workers rush out between acts, spreading fresh sand over the blood. dragging away carcasses that'll probably end up in tomorrow's meat market. Waste not, want not. The smell is getting intense. Iron, fear, and death mixing with incense and sweat. The grand finale approaches. They're setting up something special, you can tell. More elaborate scenery appears. Is that a mountain? They've built an actual mountain in the arena. This is going to be either spectacular or spectacularly stupid. And honestly, you're here for either option. The sun is directly overhead now, beating down like Jupiter's own hammer, and the atmosphere shifts. The funny animal antics are over. Time for the meridiani, the lunchtime executions, and buddy, the Romans do not mess around when it comes to creative death. The crowd thins a bit as some of the more squeamish or sensible head out for lunch. But you're staying put. Partly because you're morbidly curious. Partly because if you leave now, that wine-breathed man-spreader will definitely steal your spot. First up, the boring executions. Boring being relative when we're talking about crucifixion. They drag out a line of prisoners, murderers, arsonists, and one guy who apparently killed his master with a chamber pot. The details were fuzzy, but the court found it compelling enough for a death sentence. The crosses go up with practiced efficiency. These arena workers have done this so many times they could probably crucify someone in their sleep. The condemned don't even struggle much. They know what's coming. We all know what's coming. But straight crucifixion is too vanilla for Roman tastes. Enter the fatal charades, executions dressed up as mythology. Some sadistic genius in the Imperial Entertainment Department has decided that if you're going to kill criminals anyway, why not make it educational? Today's theme: greatest hits of divine punishment. You're about to watch condemned prisoners cosplay their way to death. They drag out some poor bastard dressed as Prometheus. The setup is elaborate. They've got a fake rock. How is it fake? It's literally a rock. And chains and everything. But here's the twist. Instead of an eagle eating his liver for eternity, they're using a bear, a very real, very hungry bear. The Prometheus is chained to the rock, and yeah, the bear does what bears do. The crowd cheers like this is prime entertainment. Which, horrifyingly, it is. Historians still argue whether these elaborate execution methods were about religious education or just pure sadism. Looking at the gleeful faces around you, it's definitely sadism with a thin educational veneer. Next up, Daedalus and Icarus. They've strapped wings made of actual feathers to two criminals. The Icarus is hoisted up on ropes to a terrifying height. You know how this story ends. We all know how this story ends. They drop him. The wings, shockingly, do not work. Physics remains undefeated. The splat is audible even from your seats. The Daedalus meets his end via a more conventional sword to the gut, which seems almost merciful by comparison. The creativity is genuinely disturbing. They've got a guy playing Orpheus, and instead of charming wild animals with music, he's being torn apart by them while holding a lyre he clearly doesn't know how to play. The irony is probably lost on him. What with the leopard gnawing on his leg? Another criminal dressed as Attis, that Syrian god who castrated himself, is... Actually, let's not go into details on that one. Even your cast-iron Roman stomach turns a bit. Here's a quirky historical tidbit. Sometimes these executions went wrong in hilarious ways. You're watching them set up a Pasiphae scenario, the queen who had sex with a bull and gave birth to the Minotaur. They've got a condemned woman, a wooden cow costume, and a very confused actual bull. The bull takes one look at the setup and decides it wants nothing to do with this nonsense. It just stands there, occasionally mooing. They're prodding it, yelling at it, even playing what might be sexy bull music. Is that a thing? Nothing. The bull has more dignity than anyone else in this arena. The crowd's getting restless. Someone throws a half-eaten sausage at the bull. This starts a trend. Soon the arena floor is being pelted with food, sandals, and creative insults. The execution coordinator looks like he wants to crawl under a rock and die. Finally, they give up and just stab the woman the old-fashioned way. The bull, having made its point, is led away to what you hope is a nice farm, where it can live out its days far from Roman weirdness. Between the mythological murders, they're doing regular executions assembly line style, beheadings for citizens, the privileged form of death, various creative options for non-citizens. One guy tries to make a run for it and gets about 10 feet before an archer puts an arrow through his calf. He goes down screaming. They drag him back and add crucifixion to his dance card for the escape attempt. Kai Kamin. The lesson is clear. You're going to die. So die with whatever passes for dignity in this blood-soaked sandbox. The mainstream historical fact everyone knows is that criminals were executed publicly as a deterrent. But here's what they don't tell you. The Romans had execution merchandise. Yeah, you heard that right. Guys are walking around selling miniature crosses, tiny nooses, and commemorative pottery depicting famous executions. That weird neighbor of yours who collects true crime memorabilia. He would have fit right in here. A new batch of prisoners is brought out, and these ones are different. Christians. You can tell by the way they're not begging or crying. They're actually singing, hymns or prayers or something. It's creepy as hell. The crowd doesn't know what to do with this. You're supposed to jeer and mock, but these people seem almost happy to die. One woman is smiling, as they tie her to a stake. This is not following the script at all. The execution master tries to restore order by making the deaths more spectacular. Christians versus lions is a classic, but these Christians are ruining it by not running. They just kneel and pray while the lions circle, confused. One lion lies down and starts grooming itself. This is becoming embarrassing. Finally, a lion gets with the program and does what lions do, but the damage is done. The crowd's enthusiasm has been seriously dampened by all this dignity in the face of death nonsense. As the afternoon executions wind down, workers flood the arena to clean up the carnage. They're spreading fresh sand, dragging away body parts, and trying to make the place presentable for the main event. The smell is indescribable. Blood, shit, fear, and that ever-present incense that's fighting a losing battle. You take a swig of wine from your neighbor's flask. He's too drunk to notice. And try to prepare yourself for what's coming next. The real show is about to begin. The trumpet sounds different this time, deeper, more serious. This is it, the main event. The gladiators enter through the gate of life. The fact that there's also a gate of death tells you everything about Roman optimism. They stride in like gods made flesh. And honestly, some of them might as well be. These aren't your scrawny criminals or terrified prisoners. These are professional killers, trained athletes, and let's be real, sex symbols of the ancient world. First come the heavily armored boys, the myrmilones. They're wearing helmets that make them look like fish. Myrmilo means fish. Creative naming there, Romans. Carrying rectangular shields that could double as dining tables, and sweating like fountains under all that gear. Their opponents today? The Thraces, carrying smaller shields and curved swords that look absolutely vicious. It's speed versus strength, agility versus armor, and you've got money riding on a Thraex named Scorpus, who better not let you down. The gladiators parade around the arena, soaking up the adoration. Women are literally throwing themselves at the barriers. Someone chucks their undergarments at a particularly buff Retiarius, who catches them with his trident and waves them like a flag, smooth. The mainstream historical fact is that gladiators were slaves and criminals. But here's the thing. The good ones are celebrities. They've got fans, groupies, and endorsement deals for olive oil and wine. They stop in front of the emperor's box and shout in unison, "Ave, Imperator, morituri te salutant." Hail, Emperor. Those who are about to die salute you. Except that's probably not what they actually said. Historians still argue whether this phrase was common or just something that happened once and got blown out of proportion. But it sounds cool, so everyone goes with it. The matches are set up like a combat buffet. You've got your classic one-on-one duels, sure, but also team battles, handicap matches, and weird specialty fights. There's even a match between two women gladiators, gladiatresses, which has half the crowd scandalized and the other half desperately turned on. They're skilled too, moving with a grace that makes some of the male fighters look like drunk bears. Here's something quirky. The referees, yeah, they have referees, dressed in white tunics and carrying sticks to separate fighters who get too clinchy. Imagine being the guy whose job is to get between two armed killers and tell them to play nice. The referee for the first match looks like he'd rather be anywhere else, possibly including the earlier executions. The first real match begins. Your boy Scorpus the Thraex versus some Mamillo named Titus the Titan. Subtle naming continues to elude these people. They circle each other like predators, which is exactly what they are. Titus swings his gladius in a wide arc. Scorpus dances back, his curved sickle flashing in the sun. The crowd holds its breath. These aren't wild haymakers. Every move is calculated, trained, practiced 1,000 times. Scorpus feints left, spins right, and his blade slips past Titus's shield to score a red line across his ribs. First blood. The crowd erupts. You're on your feet screaming like your life depends on it, which it doesn't, but your week's wine budget might. Titus staggers back, more surprised than hurt. The referee jumps in to check the wound. It's not deep. The fight continues. The combat styles are insanely varied. In the next arena section, a Retiarius is fighting two secutores at once. His net whirls through the air like a living thing, tangling one opponent while he fends off the other with his trident. It's like watching a deadly ballet. If ballet involves stabbing, the Retiarius takes a shield bash to the face and goes down hard. Blood streams from his nose. The crowd gasps. He's not getting up. Meanwhile, your match is getting brutal. Titus has found his rhythm, using his bigger shield to bulldoze forward. Scorpus is giving ground, sweat flying with each desperate parry. They've been at it for 15 minutes. Doesn't sound like much. But try fighting for your life in full gear under the Roman sun. Both men are exhausted, sucking air like landed fish. Then it happens. Scorpus trips over his own feet, or maybe a body part from the earlier festivities. The sand's not exactly pristine. He goes down hard, sword flying from his grip. Titus stands over him, sword raised. This is it, the moment of truth. Scorpus raises his finger, the signal for mercy. He's submitting. Now it's up to you. Well, you and 49,999 of your closest friends. The crowd explodes into chaos. Missio! Mercy, scream some. Ugala! Kill him! Howl others. You're torn. Scorpus fought well, but he also just cost you 10 sestertii. The emperor watches the crowd, reading the mood like a politician at a poll. Thumbs go up, thumbs go down. People wave their toga hems, which apparently means something but nobody's quite sure what. Trajan makes his decision. His thumb moves, and here's where it gets confusing. Popular culture says thumbs down means death, but historians now think it might have been the opposite. Or maybe it was a thumb to the throat, or a closed fist. Whatever the gesture, the meaning is clear from context. Scorpus lives. The crowd cheers, mostly. You're still bitter about your bet. Titus helps his opponent up. They'll probably fight again next week. It's a business, after all, but not everyone's so lucky. In another match, a provocator takes a gladius through the gap in his armor. He drops like a sack of grain. No mercy request here. He's dead before he hits the sand. A guy dressed as Charon, ferryman of the dead, comes out with a hot iron to poke the body, making sure he's not faking. Another guy dressed as Mercury guides the soul to the afterlife, which apparently involves dragging the corpse out through the gate of death while trying to look mystical. The afternoon wears on. Victory and defeat, mercy and death, all blending into a crimson spectacular. Your throat is raw from screaming, your tunic soaked with sweat, and you've lost track of how much money you've won or lost. This is gladiatorial combat at its finest. Brutal, beautiful, and absolutely bonkers. The energy in the arena is electric, crackling like lightning before a storm. Every match has led to this moment, the crowd deciding who lives and who dies. You're part of the mob now, drunk on wine and power, your voice joining thousands of others in a roar that could wake the dead, which, given what just happened to that secutor in Section 3, might be literally necessary. The power dynamic here is intoxicating and terrifying. You, a nobody who sells fish sauce for a living, suddenly have the power of life and death over trained killers. The emperor watches the crowd like a hawk, because ignore the mob's wishes and you might find yourself on the wrong end of a riot. Or worse, unpopular. The mainstream historical fact everyone knows is the thumbs up, thumbs down thing. But the real power play is more complex. It's about reading the room, playing politics with blood. A retiarius named Neptunus, these names, seriously, has just been brought to his knees by a Dimachus, a crazy bastard who fights with two swords like he's trying to die twice as fast. Neptunus fought well, tangled his opponent twice, drew blood 3 times, but ultimately got overwhelmed. Now he's kneeling in the sand, finger raised, eyes scanning the crowd. You can see the calculation in his face. Did I give them enough of a show? The crowd erupts into factions. The women are screaming for mercy. Neptunus is young, pretty, and his muscles glisten with oil and blood in a way that's doing things to the ladies in row 4. The old veterans in your section want blood. They're making throat-cutting gestures and howling for death. The dice players are just pissed, because this affects their betting pools. You're caught in the middle, your voice adding to the cacophony without really knowing which side you're on. Here's something quirky. Gladiators who fight well, but lose often get more mercy than winners who fight boring. The crowd respects effort, hates cowardice, and absolutely despises anyone who makes them feel like they wasted their afternoon. You watched one Mamillo earlier win his fight, but do it so defensively, so carefully, that the crowd booed him out of the arena. Victory without glory is worse than a glorious defeat. The emperor raises his hand, and the crowd quiets. Well, quiets to a dull roar, which is as silent as 50,000 drunk Romans get. He's playing the crowd like a master performer, drawing out the moment, His hand wavers, up, down. The tension is unbearable. Your neighbor is literally biting his nails. Finally, the gesture. The exact meaning is lost to history, but Neptunus's shoulders slump with relief. He lives. The crowd explodes, half cheering, half booing, all emotionally exhausted. But the real power trip comes when the crowd goes against the emperor's inclination. You can see it sometimes. Trajan starts to give mercy, hears the bloodthirsty howl of the mob, and changes his mind, or vice versa. It's a delicate dance. Push too hard against the crowd, and you're a tyrant. Give in too easily, and you're weak. The gladiators are almost secondary to this political theatre playing out above their bleeding bodies. The social dynamics in the stands are just as violent as the arena floor. A fight breaks out 3 sections over because someone insulted someone else's favorite gladiator. Fists fly, togas tear, and suddenly it's a multi-row brawl. The arena security wades in with clubs, restoring order with extreme prejudice. The irony of fighting about fighting while watching fighting is lost on exactly no one. But that doesn't stop it happening every single games. Historians still argue whether the crowd's bloodlust was genuine or performative. Watching the faces around you, it's both. That grandmother 2 rows down, who looks like she should be home knitting, is screaming for blood with a viciousness that's genuinely disturbing. But the teenage boys behind you are clearly just following the crowd, yelling for death because that's what you do here. It's peer pressure weaponized and given the power to kill. The matches continue, and the crowd's mood swings wildly. A beloved gladiator named Felix the Fortunate, the jokes write themselves, is fighting his 100th bout. Survive this and he wins the wooden sword. The rudies, his freedom. The entire arena is on his side when he takes a spear thrust to the thigh and goes down. 50,000 people hold their breath. His opponent stands over him, weapon raised, waiting for the crowd's verdict. The noise is deafening. Michio, Michio, Michio. It's unanimous. Even the bloodthirsty veterans want Felix to live. The emperor doesn't even hesitate. Mercy granted. Felix struggles to his feet, leaning on his opponent, who looks relieved. Killing a crowd favorite is bad for your career. They raise his hand. The crowd goes absolutely insane. You're crying. Why are you crying? You don't even know this man. But you're sobbing like he's your brother. The psychological weight of this power is starting to hit you. Earlier, you condemned a man to death because he fought poorly. His name was... You don't even remember his name. He's dead now. Throat opened by a gladius, because you and your neighbors didn't find him entertaining enough. The wine isn't sitting well in your stomach anymore. Or maybe it's the realization that you've become part of the machine, a cog in the empire's blood-soaked entertainment complex. But then the next match starts, and the guilt fades. A provocateur with a reputation for dirty fighting is squared off against a crowd favorite. When the dirty fighter goes down, the crowd bays for blood like wolves. You're howling along with them, finger drawn across your throat, demanding death. The emperor obliges. The sword goes in. The crowd cheers. You cheer. The body is dragged away, leaving just another red stain on the sand. By the time the afternoon's winding down, you've personally condemned 3 men to death and saved 5. You've become an expert at reading the emperor's moods, predicting which gestures mean what. You've learned that mercy is often crueler than death. A gladiator who fights poorly and lives has to come back and do it again and again, until he either gets good or gets dead. The power is addictive. Tomorrow you'll go back to being nobody, hawking fish sauce to housewives who haggle over every copper. But today you're a god, dispensing judgment with a gesture, your voice joining thousands to decide who sees another sunrise. It's terrifying. It's exhilarating. It's absolutely corrupting. And you'll be back next week, screaming for blood with the rest of them. The afternoon sun is starting to slant when the announcer's voice booms across the arena. Citizens of Rome, prepare yourselves for a spectacle never before seen. The emperor presents to you a naumachia. The crowd loses its collective mind. A naval battle. They're going to flood the arena for a naval battle. You've heard about these but never seen one. How the hell do you flood a building this size? Where does the water come from? Where does it go? These are questions for engineers and slaves to worry about. Not you. The gladiators are rushed off. The sand is cleared with unusual efficiency. And then you see them, the pipes. Massive bronze pipes emerging from hidden panels in the arena wall. Water begins gushing out with a force that makes you glad you're sitting up high. The mainstream historical fact everyone knows is that Romans were master engineers. But watching the arena transform into a lake in real time is something else entirely. The water rises fast, faster than seems possible. Within an hour, there's a proper lake where the killing floor used to be. But here's the bonkers part. They're bringing in actual ships. Not little rowboats or crude rafts. Proper warships. Scaled down but still massive, being floated in through gates you didn't even know existed. How deep are the basements under this place? The ships are painted and decorated to represent different nations. One's done up as a Greek trireme, another as an Egyptian vessel with a golden prow shaped like a crocodile. The attention to detail is insane for something that's about to be destroyed. The sailors file out onto the ships, and your heart sinks a little. These aren't professional gladiators. These are condemned criminals, war prisoners, and slaves who've probably never seen the ocean, let alone fought on it. They're wearing period-appropriate costumes, Greeks in bronze, Egyptians in linen, but they handle the oars like they're holding poisonous snakes. This is going to be less epic naval battle and more world's deadliest swimming lesson. Historians still argue whether these naumachii were real battles or choreographed performances. Watching these poor bastards try to row in formation, you're pretty sure nobody choreographed anything. One ship immediately rams into the arena wall. Another is spinning in circles because only the left side figured out how rowing works. The Egyptian ship appears to be taking on water before the battle even starts. The crowd finds this hilarious. You're trying not to think about how many people are about to drown for your entertainment. The battle begins with a trumpet blast. Arrows fly, most landing harmlessly in the water with tiny splashes. The Greeks attempt a ramming maneuver that goes about as well as you'd expect from people who learned to sail an hour ago. They miss their target entirely and crash into the Egyptian vessel, which was already sinking and really didn't need the help. Men tumble into the water. Some can swim, many can't. The drowning starts immediately. Here's something particularly messed up. They've released crocodiles into the water. Actual crocodiles. Because apparently drowning and stabbing weren't enough ways to die. You watch one swimmer making decent progress toward the edge when something pulls him under. He doesn't come back up. The crowd cheers like this is the best thing they've ever seen. The wine in your stomach is definitely not sitting well now. The Roman ship, because of course there's a Roman ship, and of course it's winning, manages to ram the Greek vessel properly. The crack of splintering wood echoes across the water. Greeks pour onto the Roman deck. And finally, we get some proper fighting. It's clumsy, desperate, and performed on a tilting, wet surface. But it's combat nonetheless. Men slip on the blood-slicked deck, tumble over the sides, grab onto each other as they fall. It's chaos. a quirky historical detail. They sometimes recreated famous historical battles. Today's might be Salamis or Actium, or some hybrid fever dream of a battle that never happened. The announcer is shouting commentary like it matters which side wins. The brave Romans repel the Greek borders. The Egyptian archers find their mark. Oh, Neptune's beard. Is that man trying to ride a crocodile? He was. It didn't end well. The engineering involved starts to dawn on you as you watch. They didn't just flood the arena. They had to waterproof it first. The whole floor must be sealed, probably with tar or concrete. The drainage system needed to handle millions of gallons of water. The gates had to be modified to let ships through while keeping water in. All this effort, all this expense, so you can watch criminals poorly cosplay historical battles while drowning. The Roman ship is winning because of course it is. Can't have Rome lose, even in a fake battle with condemned criminals. The last Greek fighters make a desperate last stand on their sinking vessel. The deck is tilted at a 45-degree angle. Men slide down it into the water like it's the world's worst playground slide. One fighter, showing more balls than brains, climbs to the highest point and makes a defiant last stand, taking 2 Romans with him before an arrow finds his chest. He falls backward into the water with a splash that somehow feels final. The water is turning pink. Bodies float face down between the wreckage. Survivors cling to floating debris. The crocodiles are having the best day of their lives. The crowd is on its feet, cheering for what? Victory, death, the sheer spectacle of it all. You're cheering too, caught up in the madness. Even as part of your brain recognizes how absolutely fucked up this all is. The Roman survivors are allowed to paddle to safety. The rest, well, the crocodiles and arena workers will handle the rest tomorrow. Some of this human wreckage will end up in the Tiber. The ships will be broken down for lumber. The water will drain away through those miraculous Roman sewers, leaving behind only bloodstains and the memory of conquest. As the water level drops, revealing the sandy floor again like some horrible magic trick in reverse, you realize you've just watched hundreds of men die badly for a historical reenactment that wasn't even historically accurate, and you loved every minute of it. What does that say about you? What does it say about Rome? These are thoughts for later, when you're not drunk on spectacle and blood. For now, you just cheer with the rest as the emperor stands to acknowledge the crowd's appreciation. As the last of the water gurgles away through the drainage system, you hear a grinding sound that makes your teeth hurt. The sand isn't just wet, it's moving. Panels in the arena floor slide apart, revealing dark holes like mouths opening to swallow the earth. This is the hypogeum at work, the underground labyrinth that makes the magic happen. You lean forward, squinting to see into those rectangles of darkness. Something's coming up. Platforms rise on creaking wooden mechanisms, powered by slaves turning capstans in the basement levels. The engineering is mind-blowing. Counterweights, pulleys, systems of ropes that would make a ship's rigging look simple. First platform brings up a fully grown elephant. The beast looks as confused as everyone else about how it got here. One moment, it's in a basement. The next, it's blinking in the afternoon sun, while 50,000 people lose their minds. The mainstream historical fact everyone knows is that the Colosseum had underground passages, but the reality is so much more complex. This is a vertical theatre, with as much happening below as above. More platforms rise. Tigers in cages that spring open on impact. A whole forest scene, complete with actual trees, small ones, but still, that pop up like the world's most violent jack-in-the-box. The crowd gasps. How? How are there trees under the arena? Where do they store this stuff? A gladiator emerges from one trap door, looking around wildly. He clearly expected to enter through a gate like a normal person, not get shot up through the floor like a cork from a bottle. A bear emerges from another hole 20 feet away. They spot each other. The gladiator's "oh shit" expression is visible even from your seat, sir. He starts backing away, but another trap opens behind him. Another bear. The crowd roars with laughter. This poor bastard just became the meat in a bear sandwich. Historians still argue whether the Romans understood the psychological impact of this uncertainty. Gladiators trained for years to fight other gladiators. But how do you train for the floor suddenly vanishing under your feet? How do you prepare for lions appearing from nowhere? The answer is you don't. You just try not to shit yourself when the ground starts moving. The stage machinery goes haywire during one sequence. A platform gets stuck halfway up, leaving a rhinoceros trapped at chest level, its head and shoulders above the sand, its ass presumably dangling in the basement. It looks indignant, which is impressive for a rhino. Slaves scramble around with poles, trying to either push it up or down. The rhino is having none of it. It snorts and swings its horn at anyone who gets close. The crowd finds this malfunction funnier than most of the planned entertainment. Here's something quirky. The elevator operators below can't see what's happening above. They're working blind, following cues from a system of bells and shouts. This leads to timing issues. A venator is stalking a leopard when a platform rises directly under him, launching him 3 feet in the air. He lands badly. The leopard pounces, and that's the end of that act. The operator below probably thinks he did great. Delivered 1 leopard fighter. Boss? The transformations get more elaborate. The entire arena floor becomes a moving puzzle. Scenery rises and falls like a fever dream. One moment, it's a desert scene with sand dunes. How do you make sand dunes from sand that's already there? The next, it's a forest. Then a rocky mountain pass. A mock fortress appears in the center, complete with walls and towers. Criminals dressed as barbarians defend it, while gladiators dressed as legionaries assault it. It's dinner theater, where dinner gets stabbed. The basement sounds drift up through the openings. Roars, mechanical creaking, men shouting in at least 6 languages. You catch glimpses of the activity below when the light hits right. Shadows moving in organized chaos, cages on wheels, ramps and pulleys and gods know what else. It's like peeking into Vulcan's workshop, if Vulcan was really into exotic animals and elaborate murder. Sometimes the surprise element backfires spectacularly. A trapdoor opens to release what's supposed to be a fierce lion. Instead, up comes a very confused kitchen slave holding an amphora of wine. He blinks in the sunlight, realizes where he is, drops the wine, and dives back down the hole before anyone can process what happened. The crowd howls. Even the emperor is laughing. Somewhere below, an elevator operator is probably being beaten with a stick. The machinery enables impossibly quick scene changes. Gladiators finish a fight. Bodies are dragged off, and boom, the floor opens up and swallows the evidence. Fresh sand pours from hidden compartments. New fighters rise from below like offerings from Hades. It's a production line of death, each act flowing into the next with mechanical precision. Henry Ford would be proud, if Henry Ford was a psychopath with a thing for lions. The animals seem to understand the trapdoor system least of all. A bear emerges, sees the crowd, and immediately tries to go back down the hole it came from. It's too big. It gets stuck halfway, arse in the air, growling at slaves below who are trying to push it up with poles. Another bear emerges from a different hole and seems equally confused. They spot each other across the arena and both try to retreat down their respective holes. It's like watching the world's most violent game of whack-a-mole. By late afternoon, the arena floor looks like Swiss cheese. Some trapdoors aren't closing properly. Sand keeps falling into the hypogeum. You can hear increasingly frustrated shouting from below. One platform rises with nothing on it but a single, indignant chicken. The chicken struts around like it owns the place while gladiators fight around it. Nobody seems to know what to do about the chicken. It becomes an unofficial mascot until a leopard settles the matter with extreme prejudice. The grand finale involves all the machinery at once. Platforms rising and falling in sequence. Scene changes every few minutes. Animals appearing and disappearing like a magician's trick. Gladiators emerging from unexpected angles. It's sensory overload, mechanical poetry, and pure chaos all rolled into one. The crowd doesn't know where to look. Neither do some of the gladiators, judging by how many are getting blindsided by surprise tigers. As the sun starts to sink lower, casting long shadows across the arena, you realize you've been watching a machine pretend to be a miracle. Every surprise, every transformation, powered by human muscle and suffering in the darkness below. The real magic isn't the machinery. It's making everyone forget about the men dying in the basement to bring you wonder. But hey, that elephant really did appear from nowhere, and that's got to count for something. The call of nature is getting impossible to ignore. You've been holding it since the morning animal hunts, and all that wine isn't helping. But leaving your seat means navigating the human sardine, and that is the Colosseum at capacity. You squeeze past your man-spreading neighbor, who's now passed out and snoring. Step on at least 3 feet, and get cursed at in languages you don't recognize. The journey to find a latrine is about to be its own adventure. The corridors are packed with people who had the same idea. The crowd moves like molasses. If molasses smelled like garlic, sweat, and desperation, you're shuffling forward, pressed between a massive German auxiliary who apparently doesn't believe in bathing and a perfumed lady whose scent is fighting a losing battle against the ambient funk. Someone steps on your heel. Someone else elbows your kidney. This is just to take a piss. You finally spot it. The entrance to one of the public latrines. The queue is enormous. Of course it is. 50,000 bladders, maybe a few hundred toilet seats. The math isn't in your favor. You join the line, trying not to think about how much your bladder hurts. The guy in front of you is doing a little dance. The woman behind you is muttering prayers to any god who'll help her hold it. This is the most relatable everyone's been all day. Finally, you make it inside, and sweet Jupiter. The smell hits you like a gladius to the face. The latrine is a long room with stone benches along the walls, holes cut at regular intervals, or no stalls, no privacy, just you and 40 of your closest strangers making eye contact while biology happens. The mainstream historical fact everyone knows is that Romans had communal toilets, but experiencing it is something else. The guy next to you wants to discuss the gladiator fights, while actively using the facilities. Romans have no boundaries whatsoever. Here's something quirky the history books gloss over. The sponge stick situation. Instead of toilet paper, there are sponges on sticks in buckets of water. Supposedly water. Looks more like soup at this point. These are communal. Yeah. You're sharing ass sponges with thousands of people. You watch someone use one, rinse it in the murky water, and put it back. Your modern sensibilities are screaming. When in Rome, you think, reaching for the least offensive-looking sponge while trying not to think about its history. The social dynamics in the latrine are bizarre. Senators shit next to slaves, though they probably have nicer latrines somewhere. People are conducting business deals, placing bets, gossiping about who's sleeping with whose wife. One guy is actively eating grapes while on the toilet. Grapes! The cognitive dissonance is overwhelming. Another man is dictating a letter to his slave, who's trying to write on a wax tablet while breathing through his mouth. The vomitorium situation is even worse. Despite what people think, a vomitorium isn't a special puking room. It's just the name for the exit corridors. But given how much wine everyone's consumed, they might as well be designated vomit zones. You pass at least 3 people actively throwing up into clay pots, if they're polite, or onto the floor, if they're not. One entrepreneurial slave is charging people to hold their hair back while they puke. The free market finds a way. Historians still argue whether the Romans were as hygiene-obsessed as we think. And honestly, based on this latrine experience, the answer is selectively. They'll spend hours at the baths, but share communal ass sponges. They'll oil and scrape their skin, but piss in the street if the lines are too long. One man is carefully washing his hands in a fountain, while his tunic has visible stains from where he clearly didn't make it to the latrine in time. You finish your business as quickly as possible. Give the sponge a perfunctory rinse, sorry, next person, and escape back into the corridor. But now you're lost. All these corridors look the same. Arched ceilings, stone walls, the occasional puddle of something you don't want to identify. You follow the crowd, hoping they're going back to the seats and not to another latrine or, worse, the exit. The food vendors in the corridors are doing booming business. Your stomach, empty, except for wine and those expensive eggs from this morning, starts growling. You buy something that might be meat on a stick. The vendor swears it's lamb. It tastes like it might have known a sheep once, possibly in passing. You eat it anyway because hunger is the best seasoning, and you need something to soak up the wine before you end up like one of those vomitorium decorators. Finding your way back becomes a Herculean task. The numbering system that seemed so logical this morning is useless when you can't remember your entrance number and you're slightly drunk. You wander through corridors, climbing stairs that lead to dead ends, descending ramps that take you to sections where everyone's speaking Phoenician. A helpful slave points you in what he claims is the right direction. He's lying, but you don't realize this until you're somehow outside the building entirely. Back inside, round 2, you're getting desperate. The gladiator fights could be ending, and you're missing the climax because you had to pee. You grab a harried-looking attendant, press a coin into his palm, and beg for directions. He takes pity on you, or just wants the coin, and personally escorts you back to your section. The journey takes 10 minutes and involves 3 flights of stairs, 2 corridor changes, and squeezing past a fight between 2 women arguing about whether the retiarius fought fairly. You finally spot your seat. Miracle of miracles, still empty. Your neighbor is awake now and greets you like an old friend. You missed the best fight, he slurs. The Murmillo pulled the Secutor's helmet off and beat him with it. You nod and smile, settling back onto the warm stone, trying not to think about where your hands have been and what you've seen. The arena stretches out below, the late afternoon sun painting everything golden, including the bloodstains. As you watch the next match begin, you make a mental note. Next time, stronger bladder or less wine, probably less wine, but as someone passes you a wineskin and you take another swig, you know you're lying to yourself. Next time will be exactly the same. Too much drink, desperate bathroom situation, horrifying hygiene, and you'll still come back. Because where else can you watch people fight lions while discussing property prices with strangers on a communal toilet. Only in Rome, the social powder keg that is the Colosseum is starting to show cracks. 50,000 people from every level of Roman society crammed together for hours. Add wine, blood, and the afternoon heat, and you've got a recipe for chaos. The careful seating hierarchy that started the day is breaking down as people sneak into better sections. Arguments erupt over everything from gladiator performances to stolen snacks, and the thin veneer of civilization starts peeling like old paint. A fight breaks out 3 rows down between 2 equestrians. Apparently, one made a disparaging comment about the other's favorite gladiator, suggesting his victories were fixed. Fists fly, togas tear, and suddenly it's a multi-person brawl as friends jump in. The arena security arrives, clubs swinging with the enthusiasm of people who've been waiting all day to hit someone. The crowd cheers louder for this impromptu bout than for some of the official matches. You notice how the social mixing creates weird moments. A senator's wife accidentally sits next to a freedwoman who makes her living selling fish. They're both cheering for the same Thraex, bonding over his fighting technique. For about 5 minutes, class distinctions dissolve in shared bloodlust. Then the senator's wife realizes who she's talking to, sniffs disdainfully, and shifts away like poverty might be contagious. The freedwoman rolls her eyes and mutters something that would make a sailor blush. The mainstream historical fact everyone knows is that Rome was a strictly hierarchical society, but the games create these bizarre pressure points where that hierarchy gets tested. A pleb who backs the winning gladiator suddenly has social capital, lecturing his betters about fighting techniques. A patrician who picks losers becomes a laughingstock, his judgment questioned by people who normally wouldn't dare make eye contact. The arena is the great equalizer, if only temporarily. Here's something quirky. The gladiator groupies transcend social boundaries. You spot a senator's daughter making eyes at a gladiator who's basically a slave with a sword. Her father looks like he's about to have an aneurysm. In the row behind you, a group of wealthy matrons are discussing, in explicit detail, what they'd like to do with the Murmillo who just won. Their husbands pretend not to hear, but their red ears give them away. Sexual tension in the arena is thicker than the blood on the sand. The class tensions explode when someone in the plebeian section starts pelting the equestrian section with olive pits. It's unclear what started it. Maybe a betting dispute, maybe just boredom. But soon, it's a full-scale food fight between the social classes. The rich throw back with wine-soaked bread. They can afford to waste it. The poor respond with whatever they can find, including some suspicious liquids that are definitely not wine. The emperor watches with amusement. As long as they're fighting each other and not him, all is well. Security tries to restore order, but they're outnumbered and honestly not paid enough for this. One guard gets hit with a flying sausage and just gives up, sitting down to eat it. Can't blame him. Another tries to arrest a senator for throwing punches and gets reminded very quickly about social hierarchy via a stream of threats involving connections, influence, and creative suggestions about the guard's mother. The guard backs off. Some pigs are more equal than others. Even in the middle of a riot, the betting disputes are getting vicious. A man near you is convinced he's been cheated by a bookmaker. He's probably right. These guys running the books are shadier than a sundial at midnight. The argument escalates until the bookmaker's enforcer, a guy built like a brick shithouse with a face only a mother could love, and she probably had doubts, suggests the complainer find somewhere else to be. The complainer finds somewhere else to be. Historians still argue whether the games were a social safety valve or a pressure cooker. Watching this barely controlled chaos, it's definitely both. People are releasing aggression, sure, but they're also building new resentments. That pleb who got wine dumped on him by a laughing equestrian, he's going to remember that. That patrician woman who got called a whore by a drunk freedman, her husband's already planning revenge. The games bring Rome together to watch Rome tear itself apart. The prostitutes working the crowd add another layer of social confusion. They range from high-class courtesans who charge more than you make in a month to desperate women who'll do whatever for the price of bread. They mingle with all classes, their presence both accepted and scorned. A senator sneaks off with one, his wife pretending not to notice. A group of plebs pools their money to share one's services. It's capitalism in its rawest form, and nobody's checking social credentials when coins are involved. A massive cheer goes up as a favorite gladiator enters the arena. For a moment, all of Rome is united in appreciation of this magnificent killer. Then he loses, and the unity shatters. Half the crowd screams for mercy, the other half for death. Fistfights break out over the proper hand gesture. Someone throws a shoe at someone else. The shoe misses and hits an innocent bystander, who throws it back in the wrong direction, starting a whole new conflict. It's like watching civilization collapse in real time, but with snacks. The afternoon wears on, and the social boundaries get blurrier. Everyone's drunk, everyone's covered in sweat and possibly blood, not always their own, and everyone's hoarse from screaming. The senator's toga is as stained as the pleb's tunic. The perfumed lady now smells like everyone else, human misery with a hint of rose oil. You're all equal in your barbarism, united in your love of watching other people suffer for sport. As the sun sinks lower, casting long shadows across this scene of controlled chaos, you realize the games are Rome in microcosm. All the tensions, all the hierarchies, all the barely suppressed violence of daily life, concentrated into one building and set to the rhythm of sword strikes and death rattles. It's horrible. It's beautiful. It's addictive. Tomorrow, everyone will go back to their proper places. But for these few hours, you're all just bloodthirsty Romans together, sort of, until someone starts another fight. The sun hangs low, painting the arena in shades of amber and blood. Your tunic is soaked through with sweat, wine, and possibly some fluids you don't want to identify. The stone seat has molded to your arse after 10 hours, creating a personalized torture device. Your voice is gone from screaming, your money is gone from betting, and your faith in humanity is gone from, well, everything. Time to stumble home through the chaos of 50,000 other Romans having the same idea. The exodus begins before the final match ends. Smart people, not you, start leaving early to beat the crush. You watch them go with envy and wine-dulled comprehension. Should probably follow them. Your legs have other ideas. They've gone numb from sitting. And standing up is like trying to walk on logs made of pain. You grab your neighbor's shoulder for support. He's too drunk to mind, swaying like a ship in a storm. You both nearly go down in a tangle of limbs and poor decisions. The corridors are a river of humanity flowing in all directions. Some trying to leave, others rushing for one last latrine visit. A few diehards heading back for the final death of the day. You're swept along like driftwood, bouncing between bodies, trying to remember which exit leads to your quarter of the city. The numbering system that confused you this morning is completely useless now that your brain is operating on fumes and cheap wine. Outside, the scene is barely controlled chaos. Every entrepreneur in Rome has set up shop around the Colosseum. Food vendors assault you with smells, garlic, fish sauce, meat of dubious origin, your stomach, empty except for wine and that maybe lamb from earlier, does complicated acrobatics. A man selling hangover cures, it's just more wine with herbs, does booming business. Another offers to carry drunk patrons home for a fee, smart, exploitative, but smart. The mainstream historical fact everyone knows is that Rome had a population of 1 million people. What they don't tell you is what happens when 5% of that population tries to leave the same building at the same time. The crush is incredible. You're pressed against strangers in ways that would be intimate if everyone wasn't disgusting. Someone vomits. Not near you, on your sandals. Perfect. Just perfect. You don't even react anymore. This is your life now. The pickpockets are having their own games out here. You watch a cut purse work the crowd with fingers lighter than butterfly wings. He's good, lifting purses with the skill of a surgeon, until he tries to rob an off-duty urban cohort officer. The thief's scream when his wrist breaks is audible, even over the crowd noise. The officer continues walking like nothing happened. Note to self, avoid anyone who looks remotely military. Here's something quirky. The post-game rituals. Some people head straight to the temples to make offerings, apparently feeling guilty about enjoying all that death. Others go to the baths, desperate to wash off the day's accumulation of filth and moral compromise. Most, like you, just want to find the nearest tavern and drink until the memory of that gladiator getting his intestines rearranged becomes fuzzy. Rome offers all kinds of therapy. Most involve wine. You're shuffling past the gladiator school when the gates open and out come the survivors. The crowd parts like they're demigods, which, to be fair, they kind of are. Men who face death for your entertainment, still bloody, still pumped full of adrenaline, surrounded by admirers. Women throw themselves at the fighters. Men offer to buy them drinks. One gladiator, face swollen from repeated punches, grins through broken teeth as fans touch him for luck. Tomorrow he'll be back in chains. Tonight, he's a hero. The social hierarchy reasserts itself quickly outside. Litters appear for the wealthy, carried by slaves who've been waiting all day in the sun. Patricians sweep past in perfume bubbles, trying to pretend they weren't just screaming for blood with the rest of you. One senator's litter passes close enough that you can see him, toga still pristine despite the day's chaos. How? Did he bring spare togas? Is there a secret rich person cleaning service in the Colosseum? These are the questions that haunt you. Historians still argue about the psychological impact of the games on regular Romans. Walking home through streets sticky with spilled wine and various bodily fluids, you can tell them it's complicated. Part of you is exhilarated, riding the high of shared experience and sanctioned violence. Part of you is disgusted, wondering what kind of people enjoy watching bears eat criminals. Most of you just wants to lie down and forget this day happened, while simultaneously planning when you can come back. The walk home is a blur of wrong turns and familiar landmarks. Your district looks different in the twilight after a day of death. That baker's shop where you buy bread. The baker was sitting 2 rows behind you, howling for blood. The woman who sells you vegetables. She was throwing things at the emperor's box when her favorite gladiator lost. Everyone you know was there, and everyone was a little bit monster, including you, especially you. You pass a group of Christians being hustled through the streets by guards. Tomorrow's entertainment, probably. They're singing again. Those weird hymns about love and forgiveness. After what you've seen today, the concepts seem alien. Love? You loved watching that Thraex gut his opponent. Forgiveness? You condemned 3 men to death because they didn't entertain you enough. their god would be appalled by you. Good thing you've got Mars and Jupiter. Gods who understand that sometimes you need blood sport to feel alive. Finally, your apartment building looms before you. Home. You climb the stairs on legs that feel like they belong to someone else. Your neighbors are all returning too. The building filling with the sounds of drunk Romans trying to find their doors. Someone's already started a fight about whether the Murmillo or the Secutor fought better. These people watched violence all day and came home to create more. Truly, Rome is eternal. You collapse on your straw mattress without even removing your vomit-decorated sandals. Tomorrow you'll wake up sore, broke, and probably still drunk. You'll swear never to go back to the games. It's too expensive, too exhausting, too morally complicated. You'll mean it too. For about 3 days. Then you'll hear about the next spectacle. Maybe exotic animals from India. Maybe female gladiators. Maybe another Nomachia. And you'll be back in line before dawn. Ready to do it all over again. Because you're Roman. And Romans need their circus. Even if it kills you. Which, judging by today, it might. You lie on your mattress as the sounds of Rome's night filter through your window. Drunk singing. Cartwheels on stone. Someone arguing about gladiator rankings. Your body aches in places you didn't know could ache. Your mind keeps replaying the day's images, the blood, the cheers, the moment you personally condemned a man to death with a gesture. The wine is wearing off, leaving behind a headache and questions you don't want to answer. What kind of person watches 50 men die and calls it entertainment? You, apparently, and everyone you know, your baker, your neighbors, that nice old lady who sells figs at the corner. All of them were there, faces twisted with bloodlust, screaming for death like it was the most natural thing in the world. Maybe it is. Maybe this is what civilization looks like. Controlled savagery, organized murder, bureaucratized brutality. The Romans didn't invent violence, just perfected its presentation. The mainstream historical fact everyone knows is that gladiator games were about social control, bread and circuses to keep the masses happy. Lying here in the dark, you know it's more complex. Yes, you're being manipulated. Yes, the emperor is buying your compliance with blood. But you're not a passive victim. You chose to go. You chose to cheer. You chose death over mercy 3 times today. The games don't just control you, they reveal you. You think about that Christian woman, smiling as the lions circled. What did she have that you don't? Faith in something beyond the arena. You've got faith too. Faith that next week's games will be even better. Faith that your gladiator will win. Faith that watching death makes you feel alive. Her faith led her to peace in the face of death. Yours leads you back to the stone seats, wallet open, throat ready to scream. Which faith is crazier? The psychological aftermath is setting in now. You know you should feel guilty. Part of you does, but mostly you feel empty, satisfied. It's like the emotional equivalent of eating too much rich food. You're full, but also somehow hollow. Tomorrow you'll go back to selling fish sauce, haggling over prices, living your small life. But for one day, you were part of something massive, something that made you feel powerful, addictive, that feeling. Dangerous too. Here's something quirky the historians don't capture. The dreams. Tonight, you'll dream of the arena. Not nightmares, necessarily, though there's plenty of nightmare fuel. Just dreams. You're in the sand, sword in hand. You're in the imperial box, deciding fates. You're the lion, the gladiator, the victim, the crowd, all at once. your sleeping mind trying to process what your waking mind accepted. 50,000 Romans will have similar dreams tonight. Rome's collective unconscious working through its collective trauma. You can hear your upstairs neighbor pacing, probably wrestling with his own thoughts. He bet his rent money on a gladiator who took a trident to the throat in the third round. Now he's got bigger problems than philosophical ones. The games create winners and losers beyond the arena. Bookmakers counting profits. Families ruined by gambling debts. Merchants who made a killing selling overpriced wine. The blood economy extends far beyond the sand. What did it all mean? The pageantry, the death, the engineering marvels, the social mixing, the controlled chaos. Historians still argue whether Rome fell because of moral decay or despite its cultural achievements. From where you're lying, it's both. The same civilization that built aqueducts and laws and literature also built a murder theatre. The same people who created art and philosophy bought tickets to watch criminals get eaten. Humans are complicated. Romans just made it official. You think about going back. Of course you do. Next week, next month, whenever the next games are announced. You'll complain about the expense, the crowds, the moral implications. Then you'll go anyway. Because where else can you feel that alive? Where else can you matter? Even for a moment, even in the worst way. Your thumb helped kill 3 men today. That's power. Terrible power. But power nonetheless. The city is quieting now. Even Rome sleeps eventually. Tomorrow the arena will be cleaned, the blood mopped, the sand refreshed. Workers will repair the underground machinery, feed the surviving animals, prepare for the next spectacle. The cycle continues. It always continues. The games will outlive you, outlive the emperor, outlive maybe even Rome itself in some form. Humans love watching other humans fight. The Colosseum just gave that love a home. You roll over, trying to find a position that doesn't hurt. Your tunic still smells like sweat and blood, and that bastard's vomit. Should probably wash it. Tomorrow. Everything's tomorrow, tonight. You're just another Roman, trying to sleep off a day of death, wondering if entertainment is supposed to leave you feeling this hollow. Wondering if everyone else feels it too, or if you're broken in some special way. But probably not. Probably everyone's lying in bed, counting sheep and dead gladiators, waiting for the next games. Because that's what Romans do. You watch, you cheer, you go home, you come back. The eternal cycle, reliable as the sunrise. Bread and circuses. Blood and sand, life and death, all mixed together in a stone bowl under the Italian sun. This is your culture. This is your entertainment. This is your Rome. And deep down, in the part of you that cheered loudest when the sword went in, you wouldn't have it any other way. That's the worst part. That's the best part. That's the only part that matters. You close your eyes and dream of lions, gladiators, and the power of your pointed thumb. Tomorrow you'll be nobody again, but you'll always have today, when you were a god in the cheap seats, dispensing death with a gesture. What a time to be alive. What a terrible, wonderful, completely fucked up time to be alive. And now, dear listener, as your own eyes grow heavy, let the ancient stones of the Colosseum fade into the mists of time. Those crowds, those cheers, those desperate battles, all dust now, whispers in history's halls. Your bed is softer than those stone seats, your world gentler than theirs, though perhaps not so different as we'd like to think. The gladiators have long since laid down their swords. The lions sleep forever in unmarked graves. The emperor's thumb points neither up nor down, frozen in marble somewhere, its power long forgotten. But you're here, safe and warm, far from the sand and blood and burning sun. Let your breathing slow like the last grains falling through an hourglass. Feel your muscles relax, releasing the phantom tension of that ancient crowd. No more crowds pressing against you. No more sun beating down. No more choices between mercy and death. Just you, drifting like a boat on quiet waters, carried gently away from Rome's savage spectacle. The arena fades, the noise quiets, the images soften and blur like watercolors in rain. You're floating now, suspended between then and now, between waking and sleeping, somewhere, in dreams perhaps. Gladiators still fight their eternal battles. But not for you, not tonight. Tonight, you rest. Sleep comes like a velvet curtain falling, soft and sure and final. The last echoes of the crowd dissolve into silence. The Colosseum crumbles into dream dust. And you're already gone, sailing into peaceful darkness where no emperors demand death. No crowds bay for blood, and the only battles are fought in the gentle arena of dreams. Rest now, rest easy, rest well. History will keep its secrets, and Rome its ghosts, while you find the quiet peace that eluded those ancient spectators. Tomorrow will come with its own small battles, but tonight belongs to stillness and stars and the blessed forgetting that is sleep. Sweet dreams, dear listener, may they be kinder than Rome's